Well, not only were the Packers the only NFC North team to lose this past weekend, but I got every single NFC North game wrong. Yeah, we're back. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. Let's hope this week goes better, but not for the rest of the NFC North. Grossi, and today we are going to be breaking down and predicting every single game in the Week 4 slate. Before we get to that, last week I went a respectable 11-5, which I think is the worst week I have had since the season has started, bringing me to a season record of 37-11. And now, there was only one person who was in first place last week in the ESPN Pick'em League, but now there are 12 of you who are tied for first place with a 41-7 record. So there's a 4-game difference between you and I. Let's see if I can catch up this week. Starting off with Thursday Night Football. You got an NFC West matchup between the Seattle Seahawks and the Arizona Cardinals. The Seahawks pulling together another impressive win after getting their first win back in Week 2 against the Steelers. They were able to take care of business against the Saints, who have not looked like the very worst in the league, but Spencer Rattler probably playing his worst game so far this season, and ultimately the Seahawks were able to pretty much dominate that game. Their defense has been consistent over these past 3 weeks, looking real good. And that offense is coming together bit by bit. They're establishing the run. Sam Darnold's actually comfortable behind that offensive line, which is one of the first times you could say that behind a Seahawks O-line since, it's been a while. And right now, Seattle is in prime position to be contenders within the NFC West. Nick Bosa out for the season for the 49ers, and they're also still dealing with George Kittle and Brock Purdy out. And on top of that, the Rams lost their first game against the Philadelphia Eagles. So for the Seahawks, if they really want to make a splash this season, they are in prime position to do so. They're going to be taking on my dark horse, which I say every single year, the Arizona Cardinals, who unfortunately lost their undefeated start last week.
It's gone. I've lost the mask.
Would you drop it?
You dropped it!
Yeah, that was a pretty frustrating game. Talking about the Cardinals, James Conner unfortunately going to be out for the rest of the season. They had Benson in last week, and for Conner, man, he has just been such a great running back these past few years. It's honestly been a really nice story, as James Conner has been one of those running backs that you kind of always just root for, and so very unfortunate for him suffering that season-long injury. On top of that, Marvin Harrison Jr. could not catch a ball this past Sunday, and their offense really was just uninspiring. Now going up against the Seattle Seahawks, and we just praised their defense, I think this is going to be a challenge for the Cardinals. The Cardinals losing a heartbreaker with a game-winning field goal against the 49ers, and ultimately, I think the Seahawks are going to provide a bit of a tougher test. I know the 49ers beat the Seahawks back in Week 1, but I think you could argue the 49ers were a bit of a different team back in Week 1, without all the injuries. So here, I'm going to have to go with the Seahawks to get yet another win this season. The Cardinals, I have no doubt, will make it competitive, and who knows, they can pull out the win, but I just feel a little bit more confidence in the Seattle Seahawks. I think they'll be able to protect against that pass rush, and if Sam Darnold doesn't turn the ball over and they're able to run it efficiently, I think Seattle's got this. Then, you got the first international game of the season. You got the purple incarnation of Satan taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, this matchup, this is going to be an interesting one. Both teams coming away with a win last week, and the Vikings, holy cow. Isaiah Rodgers having the game of his life. The defense was unstoppable, and what was unstoppable was the fact that the Bengals kept on turning the ball over. But Jake Browning did not get his revenge against Minnesota last week, and that Vikings defense, if you had them in fantasy, holy God, they really performed for you. And talking about their offense, and we talked about it on this channel, Carson Wentz was more than fine, and considering he is a veteran as opposed to J.J. McCarthy, who's still recovering from his injury, you had a feeling that Wentz was going to be able to use that supporting cast and actually make it pretty efficient. On top of that, Jordan Mason, their pickup from the 49ers, has been a great addition to that Vikings backfield. With Aaron Jones on IR, there is no doubt that Mason can continue that ground game. And hey, the Vikings won a big game last week. They're going to be taking on a team who beat another team who could not stop fumbling the ball, and that is the Pittsburgh Steelers, who were able to come away with an insane win against the New England Patriots because Stevenson was like, here you go. No, I don't feel like winning anymore. And the Steelers feel like they really just survived that game against the Patriots. It really felt like the Patriots should have won that game by multiple touchdowns. But hey, that Steelers BS magic continues today, and they were able to get a win. The concern I have for the Pittsburgh Steelers has been their defense over this past few weeks. It just doesn't feel like the same old Steelers defense, and with Aaron Rodgers, who has not been at his very best, this is going to be an interesting game, considering I'm trying to remember what happened last time Aaron Rodgers faced that Vikings defense in Europe.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
Never mind, we don't talk about that. But for this game, it really could go either way. I'm leaning Vikings right now just because of their defensive performance. And hell, if that defense even looks half as good as they did on Sunday, I think the Vikings can win this game. You know this is going to be a game that Aaron Rodgers is going to want to win, but we'll see if their offense is going to be able to perform against a very good Vikings D. So here, I'm going to have to go with the purple incarnation of Satan to get the win. We'll see if TJ Watt's going to be able to get after Carson Wentz, which I think could be a difference maker, but TJ Watt has had a little bit of a slower start to the season, so I'm going with the Vikings, and hey, it's a win-win for me because either I'm right or the Vikings lose. Following that, you got the Washington Commanders taking on the Atlanta Falcons. Oh, the Commanders bouncing back from a tough loss on Thursday night against the Packers by beating the ever-living crap out of the Raiders. They utilized their special teams. They utilized the ground game. And ultimately, Marcus Mariota played efficiently enough that they were able to get the win. They're going to be taking on the Atlanta Falcons, who, good God, man, Falcons fans were talking a whole lot of smack before last Sunday, only to get shut out by the Panthers.
Oh, yeah. I ain't gonna lie, I'm getting cooked.
Falcons, good God, the defense, they didn't look so great after dominating the Vikings on Sunday Night Football the week prior. The offense, Michael Penix could not move the ball. They were missing field goals left and right. I thought this was only a problem with Younghoe Koo, who is now signed with the Giants. And ultimately, it was just a big egg that they posted on Sunday with a big ol' 0. And that is a challenging game for the Falcons to try and come back from. Going up against a division rival in the Panthers and having that kind of outcome, yeah, that has definitely cooled me on the Falcons. And so now this turns into a pretty big game. We'll see how Michael Penix plays this week, as Kirk Cousins had to come in this past Sunday. And as for Jaden Daniels, his status is still day to day. And so we'll see if he's even going to be able to play on Sunday. But I imagine they're going to be a little bit more cautious with him because they were able to win this past week. So here, I'm actually going to go with the Commanders to get the win. I probably would have picked the Falcons if they, I don't know, put up at least even a fight against the Panthers. But right this second, I got to be down against Atlanta. I think the Commanders have a good enough team that they should be able to handle whatever the Falcons throw at them. The biggest problem for the Commanders here is if the Falcons get that ground game going. We've seen what Robinson and Algier can do when they get hot. And so if the Commanders are able to limit that, I think they'll win this game. Following that, you got the New Orleans Saints taking on the Buffalo Bills. The Saints, yeah, that was a tough game to watch. And we've been talking about them throughout the entire offseason because they were expected to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. And last week was the first time they actually looked like it, as they got blown out by the Seahawks.
I expect nothing, and I'm still let down.
And for the Saints, this is an evaluation year, right? Because you have Spencer Rattler, who has looked good the first 2 weeks. This past week, not the best. And you just drafted a brand new quarterback as well who has yet to see the field. And so ultimately for the Saints, they're just trying to figure out what they have on their roster. They're going to be taking on the Buffalo Bills, who were able to put away the Dolphins last Thursday night in that divisional matchup. The Bills defense, I still think, is a bit suspect, but their offense, yeah, they could beat you in a litany of ways. One, you got frickin' Josh Allen back there, who is always going to be a problem. And while there are definitely some question marks at receiver, their ground game with James Cook can also take over a game. And so while they're waiting for a couple of key pieces on that defense to get healthy, here, I think being played in Buffalo, the Bills should be able to make easy work of the Saints. I don't know if this is going to be the most competitive of games this week, but here, I feel pretty confident in Buffalo. They get the W. Following that, you got the Cleveland Browns taking on the Detroit Lions. Please, Cleveland, please don't embarrass me like you already did this past Sunday. The Browns getting a big-time win over the Green Bay mother-loving Packers this past Sunday. They weren't leading the entire game. They didn't score a single point until the last 4 minutes of that game, and ultimately, the Packers choked it away, leaving a very, very terrible Sunday for me to follow. What a great weekend. But Cleveland, let's talk about them. Their offense, not so great. Judkins was able to get things going as the game went along, but their offense really could not move the ball. Now, you could talk about the Packers' defense being one of the reasons why, but it's also because the Browns' offense just doesn't have that kind of firepower. Taking a look at the other side of the ball, holy God, their pass rush was dominating the Packers O-line the entire game. Mason Graham had the game of his life and was getting in the backfield on nearly half of his snaps, so that's really impressive. Myles Garrett was playing really well, and ultimately that defense is really damn good in Cleveland. They're going to be taking on the Detroit Lions, who also had a big-time win, this time on prime time against the Baltimore Ravens. A very close game for a good chunk of it, but they were able to pull away in the fourth quarter. 7 sacks on Lamar Jackson. On top of that, their offensive line keeping Jared Goff upright, and that run game with David Montgomery, holy cow. It looks like that Lions offense is fully back. So they're going to be taking on a good defense in the Browns this week, and I feel like after Cleveland beat the Packers, Lions fans might be feeling a little bit differently about the Browns this week.
And the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So Jim is actually my friend. But because he is his own worst enemy, the enemy of my friend is my enemy. So actually Jim is my enemy.
Please lose, Lions. But ultimately, being played in Detroit, I don't think the Lions are going to get caught with the same mistakes as the Packers. Now, I will say, if the Browns are able to limit the rushing attack of the Lions, I think the Browns actually have a shot of winning this game. My concern for Cleveland is going to be their offense. Are they going to be able to contain Aiden Hutchinson and Muhammad? Are they going to be able to actually move the ball against this Lions defense? That's going to be the ultimate question. Otherwise, I do have the Lions winning this game here. I just think if their offense is able to get going, they have a little bit too much firepower for the Browns to contain. But that being said, I would not be surprised if this is a very low-scoring game. It might be a defensive battle, and ultimately, whoever has the ball last might be able to get the win. But here, I'm going to go with Detroit, and hopefully, I'm wrong. Then you got the Carolina Panthers taking on the New England Patriots. The Panthers, you won! You did it! And Panthers fans, it really just felt like you needed that win.
Yes! Yeah! Oh, better luck next time, buddy.
The Carolina Panthers not only beat their division rival in the Atlanta Falcons, but they shut them out 30-0. A really nice performance by the team that has been struggling as of late. And I know there was a lot of question marks about Bryce Young, and I still think that there are, but a kind of win like that on Sunday against the Falcons is one that they can build off on. They're obviously a young team trying to figure out if they have their franchise quarterback. And again, while that still is unknown, they took a little bit of a step forward this past Sunday. Now let's see if they can continue to go. They're going to be taking on the New England Patriots, who literally gave that game away to the Steelers. 4 freaking fumbles, 2 on the goal line, and ultimately a very frustrating game for New England Patriots fans. And here's the thing about the Pats. They're looking better week to week. Fumbles aside, because they should have won that game on Sunday. They looked good the week before, and I feel like the Patriots are a team that is still developing. You're trying to figure out if Drake May's the guy, if you can protect him, if you can get the ground game going. But honestly, if you're a Patriots fan, I feel like you have a bit of confidence because Drake May looks like the guy. You just need both sides of the ball to start playing complementary football. Now, here going into this game in New England, I actually have the Patriots getting the win. The reason being is because I feel like last week was an anomaly. I don't think you're going to have 4 fumbles again this Sunday. And like I said, the Patriots should have won that game with a pretty big margin. And so here, I think they're going to be able to take down the Panthers. Who knows? This might turn into a battle of 2 ground games. But here, I think the Patriots defense should be able to step up. And if they don't turn the ball over 4 times, I think they get the win. Following that, oh God, Jackson Dart, you got the LA Chargers taking on the New Jersey Giants. The Chargers, 3-0 on the season, 3-0 within the division, a game winner. Beating the Denver Broncos this past Sunday. Justin Herbert looked phenomenal. I know Najee Harris got injured, and that is very unfortunate. We talked about this in Power Rankings. We'll see how Omari and Hampton is going to fill that role. But yeah, you got to be pretty freaking excited if you're a Chargers fan. It feels like things are finally different. And considering the season started with you losing Rashawn Slater, the fact that they've been able to win 3 divisional games in a row, I don't care what team you are, that's impressive, and they deserve a ton of credit for it. And looking at that defense, yeah, it looks for real. They're going to be taking on the Giants, who had A tough night this past Sunday. While it was a close game going into halftime, ultimately Russell Wilson could not lead that team to victory. They had chances to at least make it a little bit closer at the end, and Russell Wilson was throwing it into the tunnel. The boos were raining down at MetLife, and I think it's pretty easy to say that Giants fans are ready for Jackson Dart.
Good.
Now, unfortunately, with Dart, you have Tyrone Tracy, who got banged up this past Sunday night, and also his first game is against that Chargers defense. So I think that this is going to be a struggle for the Giants to win this game. I do think the Chargers have a better overall team, and while the Giants defense could keep them in this game, I think the Chargers, even if they don't have a great ground game, Justin Herbert has been playing really well these past 3 weeks. And again, that Chargers defense against a rookie QB in his first start, yeah, there's just no way I can pick the Giants here. Hopefully Dart looks pretty good. Hopefully he survives this game, but I got the Chargers winning. Then, one of the potential games of the week. You got the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Eagles involved in a classic against the LA Rams. It wasn't really a classic if you're a Rams fan. It was pretty painful. But the Eagles able to claw their way back into that game, blocking a game-winning field goal, returning it for a touchdown, and ultimately continuing their winning streak as they remain undefeated. Let's talk about that Eagles game. We mentioned it in Power Rankings yesterday, but that first half was atrocious for Philly. They couldn't get Saquon Barkley going. Jalen Hurts wasn't looking good. And the Rams, their offense was moving the ball. Then switch over to the second half, it felt like a different football game. Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown really started to find a rhythm, and ultimately, as I just mentioned, they were able to get the win. They're taking on another undefeated team who had one of their field goals blocked, and even though it was close, the Buccaneers were still able to come away with the win.
I can't f***ing do this anymore! That was pure luck! I was not in control of that situation at all!
Baker's just gonna freaking frack and bake. But let's talk about the Buccaneers, because they're one of the most impressive teams in football. And while they are dealing with a ton of injuries, their O-line is beaten up right now, they should be getting Tristan Wirfs and Chris Godwin back at some point soon. I know there's potential that Wirfs comes back this Sunday. As of recording right now, that is still undetermined. And that would be a huge boost to this offensive line, as Tristan Wirfs is one of the best offensive linemen in the NFL. And this game has all the makings of being a very close contest. The Buccaneers over these past 3 weeks have found ways to win, and while the Eagles offense has not looked the best at times, they're another team that's doing whatever it needs to do to get the W. And so I think this is going to be a very hard-fought game. Being played in Tampa, I think, gives an advantage to the Buccaneers just playing in that heat, and Baker Mayfield has been on fire. The question I have is, the Rams defense is obviously really good. Their pass rush is one of the best in the NFL. Can the Buccaneers get after Jalen Hurts, and can they stop Saquon Barkley? If the answer to both those questions is yes, I think the Buccaneers can come away with the win. So this game really comes down to a coin toss, but I am going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles to get the win this week. I don't feel super confident in this game, but I think the Eagles have proven that they are a championship caliber team, even though things are not going well right now. And honestly, I feel kind of the same about the Buccaneers. They're finding ways to win, and it might just be whoever has the ball last, but I'm going to stick with Philadelphia, and I'm just looking forward to a great game. Then you got an AFC South matchup between two best friends. You got the Tennessee Titans taking on the Houston Texans. The Titans. Can you protect Cam Ward? The guy has been sacked 15 times in the past 3 weeks. They wound up getting their ass kicked by the Indianapolis Colts and Indiana Jones, and it has been a tough start for the Titans. Cam Ward has shown a ton of promise behind a not-so-great offensive line. The play calling and the coaching hasn't been good, to the point where Callahan just got his play calling duties revoked, and so I know Titans fans are already counting down his final days.
Don't make me pre-fire you.
You wouldn't dare.
Watch this. You're pre-fired.
They're going to be taking on another winless team in the Houston Texans, which if you started this season and told me they wouldn't have won a single game, yeah, I would have been at least a little surprised. The Texans, let me be very clear, the Texans' offense has not looked good. Their defense, I still love you, you can never do anything wrong. But their offensive line, good God, it is atrocious. They can't protect C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud also has not been playing his best ball over these past 3 weeks. They are missing Joe Mixon very, very badly. And right now, the Texans are sitting without a single win. Now, being played in Houston, I think that Texans crowd is going to be very, very desperate for a win against their division rival here. And even though they're obviously best friends on scripted, I do think the Texans should be able to get their first win of the season. I don't know if Cam Ward is going to be able to stay upright a whole lot during that game. You talk about the pass rush of the Texans, and it's one of the best in the NFL, up there with the Rams. And so here, I think that they will be having a feast on Cam Ward because that offensive line has also shown that they can't really block. Now, I do think it's a possibility for the Titans to win this game, and we'll see what it looks like without Callahan's play calling. But here, I have enough faith in that Texans defense to get after Cam Ward and stop whatever they're trying to do on the ground. So Houston, you get your first win, but you still got problems. Following that, you got the Indianapolis Colts taking on the LA Rams. The Colts, they are 3-0 on the season, and they find themselves in some elite company.
I don't belong here!
Daniel Jones is not lighting the world on fire, but good God, is it such a fantastic story. Unless you're a Giants fan, then just everything is pain. But he has been playing really efficient football. Jonathan Taylor absolutely tearing it up this past weekend against the Titans. And listen, man, their defense has gotten better. Their O-line is blocking well. And the Colts, they seem like favorites right now in the AFC South after only 3 weeks because the rest of their division, you basically got the Jaguars. They're going to be taking on the LA Rams, who suffered a heartbreaking loss against the Eagles last week. We mentioned before, a blocked field goal return for a touchdown sealed their fate. And as I mentioned, the Rams had opportunities to put that game away. They were playing really great football in that first half. That defense was getting after Jalen Hurts. We mentioned that Saquon Barkley was ineffective. And now the Rams are facing an undefeated Colts team. Taking a look at this game, I think the Colts offensive line is really going to get tested, and we're going to see how good Daniel Jones actually is. A lot of folks asking, are the Colts actually for real? This is the game. If the Colts are able to take down the Rams, then yeah, I would say the Colts are for real in this 2025 NFL season. The Rams, I do think, are a better constructed team, and while, of course, they have a loss under their belt, it was against the reigning defending Super Bowl champs, so I'm not going to subtract a ton of points from them. If they're able to establish the run and Matthew Stafford has some time, I do think the Rams should be able to get the win here. The matchup I have circled here is going to be Jared Verse against that offensive line, and that's going to be really fun to see. But here, at home, I got the Rams ending the undefeated season of the Indianapolis Colts. And let's just hope that this doesn't send the Colts spiraling into the kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Following that, you got the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the San Francisco 49ers. This is actually a really intriguing game. The Jaguars able to knock off their division rivals in the Texans last week. And listen, I gotta give the Jaguars some credit. ETN's playing well. That defense has improved massively from last season. And Trevor Lawrence, when he's playing well, their offense is very, very efficient. And unfortunately, I'm getting some deja vu because I feel like I have talked about this Jaguars offense a lot last season of, once they start getting everything going, things are really going to look good. And Brian Thomas Jr. is not having the best start to the season. But seriously, if they get him going, that offense could be dangerous going forward. They're taking on the 49ers, who were waiting to get healthy, and then Nick Bosa got injured.
I don't think anything's ever going to get better ever again.
The 49ers' bad luck with injuries continues. After getting decimated last season by injuries, this season has not been off to a great start. Ayuk was already hurt. Brock Purdy is out. George Kittle is out. And now Nick Bosa is missing the entire season. We talk about the defense of the 49ers, and they've been really impressive over these past 3 weeks. They've been able to get some gritty wins, whether it's against the Seahawks or there was last week in a game winner against the Cardinals. And while they've been able to stay afloat on the offense, because Mac Jones has been doing a fine job with the help of Christian McCaffrey, I don't know how long this is going to be sustainable. And taking on a Jaguars team who looked pretty damn good last week, I think the Jaguars could actually win this game. Not having to worry about Nick Bosa is a godsend for that offensive line. And if they're able to establish the run with Travis Etienne, I know Fred Warner is amazing. I think the Jaguars have a good shot of winning. The 49ers are going to have to hope that Mac Jones has another efficient game, doesn't turn the ball over, and I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that the 49ers wind up winning another close game. But here, I'm going to go with the momentum of the Jaguars to give the 49ers their first loss of the season. And so do you hear that, Jacksonville? I'm believing in you. Don't let me down. And then, How the mighty have fallen. You got the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. The Ravens suffering another heartbreaker on primetime, this time against the Detroit Lions, in which they were keeping it really darn close for the first 3 quarters of that game, and then unfortunately they fell apart in the trenches. They did not sack Jared Goff once. They allowed 7 sacks on Lamar Jackson, which I know isn't completely on the offensive line, but damn, that's not good. On top of that, Derrick Henry with another costly fumble. This is now 3 in 3 weeks. That doesn't bode well. And ultimately for the Ravens, they are just scrambling, trying to figure this thing out. They have a massively talented roster with one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. They just have to put things together quickly or they're going to fall behind. They're going to be taking on the Kansas City Chiefs, who got their first victory of the season against the Giants this past Sunday night. While they were on primetime and had much better results than the Ravens, that offense still hasn't fully figured it out. Isaiah Pacheco definitely looked better against that Giants defense, and while Patrick Mahomes has been playing pretty solid football, they are definitely missing Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy. The good news for the Chiefs is that Xavier Worthy should be healthy relatively soon, and on top of that, Rashee Rice will be back in a few games. And while the question mark definitely remains with the Chiefs offense, I'm very curious how their defense is going to try and contain Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. Can they have similar results to the Lions? That's going to determine who is going to be the winner here, because I don't have a ton of faith right now in that Ravens defense. Their secondary didn't look so hot. They could not stop the run whatsoever against the Lions. And hell, we've been talking about the Chiefs' run game or lack thereof. Maybe they get it going at Arrowhead against the Ravens this week. However, and I'm probably going to regret this, I'm going to go with the Ravens to get the win here. The Chiefs have kept it close against good teams like the Philadelphia Eagles, like the Chargers, and I think that this will be a close game as well. I mean, hell, before week 4, a lot of folks were anticipating that this was going to be the AFC Championship game potentially. But the reason I'm going to give the Ravens a win is because I believe in their offense a bit more right now than the Chiefs. The Chiefs, I think, are going to look like a completely different team in October, but as of right now, if they're able to establish the run with Derrick Henry, who doesn't fumble, and Lamar Jackson can have some time to do his magic, I think they should be able to do enough to get the win over the Kansas City Chiefs. And ultimately, one of these teams is going to be 1-3 after this week.
I don't want to go. I don't want to go. Sir, please. Please, I don't want to go.
Let's see who gets dusted. Following that, you got the Chicago Bears taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. The Bears, they won a game! On the 3rd week, Caleb Williams rose again, and listen, it was a little touch and go for a while. I have a feeling after those first couple of games, Ben Johnson was very unsure about Caleb Williams, but after this past Sunday, he'll let him live for another week.
Well done.
But let's talk about that Bears offense. Caleb Williams put on a show against the Dallas Cowboys, who have a very, very bad defense. And I know that CeeDee Lamb was out for the Cowboys, and that made a major difference in terms of the Bears defense just having to defend what the Cowboys offense was throwing at them. But you got to give a lot of credit to the Bears here. Whether it was the ingenuity of the Ben Johnson play calling, the offense looked completely and totally different. On top of that, Caleb Williams actually had some time to throw the ball, and look what happened. He did well. And so for the Bears, this is a pretty big win. I know it's their first of the season, and it doesn't mean that they're a great team, but it shows that they can also compete, because the first 2 weeks, you were a bit unsure. They got their ass beat by the Lions, and they lost to a J.J. McCarthy-led Vikings team who then got destroyed by the Falcons. So this should inspire some confidence with Bears fans who have been in desperate need of some in the past couple of weeks. They're going to be taking on the Raiders, who, good God, they could use some confidence. Even though Geno Smith didn't turn the ball over and he was able to get a few touchdowns, a bunch of those touchdowns came late, and ultimately they did not do very well against the Washington Commanders. Their special teams didn't look good, the defense didn't look great, and for the Raiders, I think we're just waiting for them to establish the run with Genty, because that is how that offense is going to be able to operate. Geno Smith is a fine quarterback, and he's used to not so great offensive lines, but it feels like they need a number 1 receiver there. I know Trey Tucker did really well last week, but he needs to either develop into a wide receiver 1, or like I said, they need to be able to rely on Ashton Genty and that ground game, just so Geno Smith isn't throwing it a cajillion times. And so taking a look at this game, this is actually a really tough one to predict. Being played in Vegas, I don't really know if it's going to benefit the Raiders here. If it was being played in Chicago, I think I would give the Bears the edge. But here, I'm going to go with the Bears to continue their win streak and get their 2nd win of the season. It'll be interesting to see how Chicago's defense plays against the Raiders. But if Geno Smith starts turning the ball over and they're not able to get Genty going, I think the Bears can find themselves with yet another win. And again, this is one of those situations where if I'm wrong, great, because then the Bears lose. But I got the Bears winning. Then You got the Green Bay mother-loving Packers taking on the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. The Packers, let's not talk about it. Yeah, they lost that game against the Cleveland Browns. Good news, their defense still looked really, really good. Before the final 4 minutes of that game, they didn't allow a single point, and if it wasn't for the offense turning the ball over with Jordan Love throwing that interception, they probably could have won that game, or hell, even if their field goal didn't get blocked, they could have won that game. So we're not putting it on the defense, but we're still talking about that defense as Cowboys fans are going to be reminded all week about the returning Micah Parsons.
Sunday, Sunday, Sunday!
So for the Packers, obviously a disappointing loss this past Sunday, and you do worry about the offensive line. It did come out today that Zach Tom is not expected to play this upcoming Sunday, and the timing of the Week 5 bye, I think, couldn't come at a better time for the Packers right now, because Zach Tom, if the Packers are going to be competitive with some of the best in the NFL, they need him healthy along that offensive line. Jordan Morgan had a really tough game this past Sunday, whether it was penalties, whether it was terrible blocking, so we'll see kind of how he's going to be utilized this upcoming Sunday against a much lesser pass rush in the Dallas Cowboys. And meanwhile, talking about the Cowboys, holy cow, man, CeeDee Lamb is going to miss a few weeks, so their number one wide receiver, gone. Their defense, to say that it looks like a shell of its former self, I think is the understatement of the year. They got torched by the Chicago Bears. They don't have a pass rush. They are definitely missing Overshown, who needs to come back yesterday. And their secondary is not really inspiring a ton of confidence either. And so this is going to be a tough game for the Cowboys to win. You know that Micah Parsons is going to want to get after Dak Prescott, and I think that this has the potential to get ugly very quickly. The Packers have had the Cowboys number over the past couple of years. They're pretty pissed off after losing to the Cleveland Browns, and so I think the Packers should be able to get a big win down in Arlington, Texas this upcoming Sunday night. And yeah, as a Packers fan, I think this game might feel pretty good. I really hope this doesn't age poorly. Following that, oh good God. To go from the Ravens and Lions, the first Monday Night Football game of the night, you got the Jets taking on the Dolphins. At least both these teams are used to losing?
Waves of new people are suddenly broke. These people have no idea how to live without money. They're what's called new poor. We're old poor.
Yeah, they could stand to learn a lesson or two from us.
The Jets almost got their first win of the season this past Sunday after blocking a field goal and returning it for a touchdown. You got to give them a ton of credit against the Buccaneers. They rallied back. They scored 21 points in that fourth quarter. It was just not enough for Tyrod Taylor and that offense to lead them to victory. But again, the Jets, like we've been talking about, are going to be one of those feisty teams. I don't think they're going to win too many games, but they'll at least be competitive as they're trying to perform this rebuild. They're going to be taking on the Miami Dolphins, who looked better against the Buffalo Bills. That's something. It does look like each week the Dolphins are progressing. The problem is there's not enough progression to actually get a win. And taking on the Jets here, I don't think this is going to be an easy game. The Jets still have a pretty solid defense, and Tua has been turning the ball over, and that has not been too pretty. On top of that, if they're not able to establish the run against the Jets, this could be a very ugly, low-scoring game on Monday night. Now, being played in Miami, I'm going to give a slight advantage here to the Dolphins, and like I said, I've been seeing some progression. I have a little bit more faith in the Dolphins for this upcoming week. However, I'm actually gonna go with the New Jersey Jets to get the win here. We'll see if Justin Fields is good to go on Monday. It's nice that he gets an additional day to heal up, of course, after suffering that concussion. As of recording this right now, it's just day to day and they don't have any new information. I definitely think having a young mobile QB can give an advantage to the Jets. But yeah, the Dolphins, I hope I'm wrong, but I'm picking the Jets to win. I just don't believe in them a whole lot right now. We'll see what their offense looks like. It looks like there's just a ton of frustration in Miami. And hey, a big win over the Jets could put them on the right track to maybe getting better this season. But as of right now, I don't think there's much hope for either team, but Jets win. And then finally, good God, why are these terrible Monday night games existing? You got the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Denver Broncos. The Bengals, oh boy, getting destroyed. And Jake Browning stood no chance against that Vikings defense.
Is there no one else? Is there no one else?
They were turning the ball over left and right. It was a very tough game to watch if you were a Bengals fan. Hell, even at the end of that game, Jamar Chase was like, I'm not even blocking anymore. And I don't even blame him. And for the Bengals, they are just in the worst possible situation. Joe Burrow is going to miss months of football. He's not going to come back until at least December. And until that time, they have to find ways to win games. Trey Hendrickson is back on that one-year deal. And so after this, it's expected that he's going to leave. And their defense isn't even the biggest problem they have this year. They haven't been able to establish the run. There's no Joe Burrow. And ultimately, it just feels like they're running on a treadmill. They're going to be taking on the Denver Broncos, who suffered yet another loss in the final seconds of that game. And this has now happened twice in a row, one with the Colts and now with the Chargers. And for the Broncos, their defense, looking pretty good. Their pass rush, pretty darn impressive. The question marks, Bo Nix and that offense. That offense, not looking great. When they get J.K. Dobbins going and have the run game, then they look a lot better because they have something they can rely upon. And it feels like they have those flashes in the ground game every now and then, which was really absent last year. But you also have to trust that Bo Nix can get the ball to receivers, as he had a bunch of overthrows this past Sunday. And now taking on a wounded Bengals team, this should be the time that the Broncos are able to get a decisive win. I do mention that the Bengals defense looks a lot better from where they were last year, but both offenses, yeah, this might be one of the ugliest Monday night doubleheaders that we have seen in a very long time. I imagine this could be a very low scoring game, and it's going to be a matter of who can establish the run, because I think that's where the majority of their points are going to come from. But here, I'm going to go with the Denver Broncos to get it done. Jake Browning going up against another tough defense, I think will be enough to give the Broncos the win. And yeah, I don't know if any of us are going to win after watching these games, but hey, sometimes that's primetime. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. Who do you got winning these games this upcoming week? Let me know. You know, I saw me at TomGrossiComedy.com, and a big shout and thank you to all the YouTube and Patreon members for supporting this channel. And thank you so much for watching, folks. Today, we are going to hit, or maybe we've already hit by the time this comes out, 900,000 subscribers, which means we're in the end game now. And I appreciate the hell out of you for supporting this free show for the past 10 years. So thank you very much. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.